I want to talk about the Double Dragon series because it was one of the best side-scrolling beat 'em up for the NES. I remember first time playing this game when I was 5 years old. We did not have an NES at the time, but our neighbors upstairs did. My memories of the time is a bit blurry, but I do remember briefly touching the game. It would be a year later before I was finally able to get a hold of a copy and complete it. The first Double Dragon game originated in the arcades. I used to play them when my parents would take me to the mall. The NES port did its best to recreate the arcade game. Unfortunately, it couldn't do co-op, but instead one player has to wait for the other to lose a life before they get a chance to play. Unlike the arcade version, there's a small element of RPG where you level up and gain new moves. You start out with the basic punches and kicks that eventually leads to flying kicks and back elbow strikes. Because the recovery of punches are slow, most of the time you'll get pummeled before you can throw out your second punches. Kicking is essentially the best move in the game because of its long reach and fast recovery. The enemies always have advantages over you in terms of their speed and ability to duck under all your attacks. The only real strategy is to understand and take advantage of their AI and do your best to survive through the stages. The toughest part of this entire game is arguably this part. These wall blocks will pop out randomly, doing crazy amount of damage to you. If you're unlucky, you will gain over just from this part, and there are no continues. The final boss is fairly easy as long as you avoid his guns. And after the final boss, you then fight the real boss, your clone. The clone is pretty tough, and he has a crazy amount of health, so your true enemy is really the timer, because once that timer hits 0, you lose a life. Once the clone is defeated, you get to hug your girlfriend. Great. All in all, it's an okay game that suffers from the same problems shared with other arcade ports, and that is they carry a meaningless high score and timers. Now let's get into my favorite of the 3 games, Double Dragon 2. Oh, where do I begin to talk about this wonderful game? We'll start with the fact that they got rid of those pesky timers. And you also got real co-op play. I remember having a lot of fun playing with my classmates. It's way more fun than playing alone. Another great new addition are the special moves. First, by timing the attack button right while jumping, we get the air spinning kick that knocks away anyone who approaches. Next, pressing both the A and B button after landing from a jump, we get the flying knee kick that launches enemies away. They're great for knocking enemies into falling pits or spikes. And finally, doing the same move but with just one attack button, we get the uppercut that sends enemies straight into the air. Not only are these special moves powerful, they give out a satisfying sound upon impact. Each stage is short and sweet. It doesn't feel like a drag, and fighting enemies don't feel dull because they don't dodge 90% of your attacks like the previous title does. Also, you respawn right after losing your lives, so you can get right back into the action. And if you lose all your lives, there's a continue now, so you can redo the stage instead of starting from the beginning. Now, one strange thing I learned was that the US version of the game is more difficult than the Japanese version. The normal difficulty is harder. The hard mode has no continues, and is the only way to access the last boss and the true ending. It's still not impossible to beat, but I feel the change was not necessary. I'm always of the opinion that there should be an incentive for playing on harder difficulty, but content shouldn't be locked behind it. Especially for this game because platforming isn't that fun, and failure usually means losing a life. The last boss is not a walk in the park. He moves fast, hits fast, backflips like his life depends on it, and his spinning attack will knock your health away. He also goes invisible to get in free hits on you. It's really an endurance fight. If you have the lives to spare, it's best to just brute force him with special moves. Once you beat him, he does some info dump on you about dragons and angels or whatever, and Marion wakes up and gives you a hug. Again, it's a great game that I still enjoy playing to this day. And now finally, we get into the worst of the trilogy, Double Dragon 3, the Rosetta Stone. No lives, no continues, worst enemy AI, All in all, it's simply a bad game. So Marion gets kidnapped again, and to get her back you have to collect the 3 Rosetta Stones. You start out with Billy, meaning you only have 1 life. If you somehow survive the barrage of enemies, and a biker guy who likes to hop around, you can just drop your controller and call it good, because it gets worse. On the second stage, you fight a Kung Fu master as a boss, who will then join you afterwards. And on the third stage, you fight a ninja, who will also join you once you defeat them. Now you have 3 characters at your disposal, and you can switch between them at any time. If you lose a character, another will come in place. Thank goodness for that. So the old woman who was supposed to help you find Marion betrays you but dies in the process. You then take on the mummies and the empress who possessed Marion's body to beat the game. I remember the only way I was able to beat this game was to use the level skip hidden command and having a turbo button on the controller. Unlike the other games in the series, I would not recommend playing this game, but if you're curious, just go check out a speedrun video. Saves the time and headaches. This chalks up another part of my childhood, and I will see you in the next video.